Will solar stop you from selling your home?
Ooh, that's a great question that we get asked a lot in the real estate industry.
Absolutely. So, as a realtor, I have mixed views on solar, but forget about me. Let's dive into the financial part of it all.
Sure. So we get asked about solar a lot in lending, and I will tell you there's really two solar scenarios. One is that you own the panels outright. From the mortgage standpoint, that's totally fine. It really has no impact on your loan. In fact, it can be a positive because if you own those panels outright, then that can be added to the appraised value of the home.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so it can
Very
be a
nice.
benefit.
So, from a realtor standpoint, owning a solar panel is also, I think, a benefit.
A benefit.
Yeah.
And people like it. And it's, especially with what power costs these days here in Connecticut, it can be a big win.
It can be a huge win, depending on the age of the roof.
Depending on the age of the roof. What's the flip side is leased panels. Leased panels are where you have a lien or a loan out on your home. Your home is being used as collateral for those panels. That can be tricky.
Yeah.
That can be tricky. So as a seller, you have to ask a lot of questions.
What we found a lot of times sellers, like when they're getting the solar like panel system, they're all excited about it. They're focused on the savings. They do their calculations to see like what's that break even point where you then literally start to save money. And that's their primary focus. They're not really thinking about, oh, what if I have to sell it? When you go to sell it, you have to keep a lot of things in mind. The condition of the roof. I mean, you have to think about that too when you're putting in a new solar panel for all our buyers out there. But then your price per kilowatt hour, is it leased? Is it owned? What are all the details of the contract?
The terms of the loan, because it's a loan that you as the seller are on.
Yeah.
Your buyer has to have the ability to take that loan over
and qualify
for the mortgage holding that loan, because there's a monthly payment associated with it. And the solar company has to be willing to do the paperwork that the mortgage company needs you to do to transfer that loan over.
And sometimes that part is like the hardest part.
That can be the hard, that we've had, sometimes it take weeks. Now, what's tough too is just like anything, there are hundreds of thousands of solar companies out there. Some are great.
Yeah.
Some are not.
Some are not. Yeah. I mean, the reality is like all the terms and contracts are different. We have a friend who sells solar panels. Her name is Raina Morales. She's amazing. She started selling it because I think like over a decade ago, she invested in solar and she's like, Sanam, it's the best thing we ever did, but they own it. So it's a little bit different. They own it. Now, as she's selling, she's sharing with me some of the challenges. For example, like there's a person who tried to sell their home and there was only a few years left in the contract. And as the buyer was reading through the terms and conditions, turns out at the 3-year mark when it's completely paid off, the owner is responsible for removing the solar panels and sending it back to the company, which is kind of absurd.
Absurd.
Yeah, like you don't really see those in the newer contracts, but in some of the older existing contracts that might be there. There's contracts where the seller can then transfer their solar panel to the next house for like a few $100s. They'll come remove it and replace it. But then the roof is possibly damaged. You remove those solar panels. Now there's nests, there's holes, there's all these things.
You really need to redo your roof.
Yeah, you really do need to redo your roof. So, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts. The reality is, as a buyer and a seller, knowing all the details of the solar lease and or agreement, just knowing everything going in right at the beginning is going to make the whole process smooth and easy.
And I would say if you are somebody who owns a home or who is thinking about putting solar panels in, if I could give you my top 2 pieces of advice, number 1, don't just accept solar panels from the guy who knocks on your door. Do your research, ask around, ask people who you know who have solar panels, who they recommend. And number 2, if you are thinking of selling that house within the terms of your contract, if you are leasing those panels, you should speak to a realtor
100%.
just to make sure that it's not going to burn you later.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for watching.
And have a great day.
Yeah, bye.